Hi, welcome back to Seventh-day Adventism, cult, Christian, or something else. I'd like to give a little bit of context here about Seventh-day Adventism in the Inland Empire, Spokane, Washington, as I start to get into some of its doctrinal distinctives. I consider Spokane, Washington to have been my home. Spokane, as you can see here, is a gorgeous city. And I grew up in there, and I was largely raised there from the age of 4.5 until I leave in the military at the age of 22. Now, did spend a lot of time in Santa Rosa, California with my dad and stepmom, but most of my time was spent here, and I loved it. Four Seasons, it's a beautiful area, and I just loved the people I grew up with and I hung around with, my friends there, much more than probably any other place I've ever lived. I will say this, Spokane did me well, even though I don't want to move back. When I've gone back the last time, a couple times to visit, it's like, okay, I don't want to live here anymore. But it was a great place to have grown up. And Seventh-day Adventism, at least from my perspective as a kid, was actually a pretty, for lack of a better word, powerful force. We had three churches when we first started out there in the city. By the time I'd leave, there'd be four in the city, and then one in the valley. And it was a pretty good size presence there for Spokane. They had the Better Living Center in town. It's a place where people could go to learn to quit cigarettes or drinking or learn about health and fitness. Uh, it was pretty popular. They also had the Spokane Junior Academy. It was a private school from kindergarten to eighth grade. And in Spalding, just outside of Spokane, was the private high school. So there was a strong presence of Adventism there in Spokane, Washington. And it was a really close-knit church at the Central Seventh-day Adventist Church, of which I belonged. The doctrinal distinctives of Seventh-day Adventism. So we can answer this idea, is it a cult, Christian, or something else? I do want to kind of intermix these distinctives as I was now a participant, a member of the community. And I also want to say this, that unlike many of the other different denominations that would spring out of the 1800s, most notably Jehovah Witnesses and Mormonism, uh, Adventists are not monolithic. Jehovah Witnesses are very monolithic. Uh, and Mormonism, not quite as monolithic as Jehovah Witnesses, but still much more so than Adventism. In Seventh-day Adventism, I would discover liberal Seventh-day Adventists, believe it or not, even to this day, conservatives, moderates. So largely, Seventh-day Adventist is not monolithic. Now, I will say they are more monolithic than other branches of Protestant Christianity, but much less than the other ones that will spring out of the 1800s. And so you will find, as I go through these distinctions, a little bit difference in practices here or there, as I discovered both when I was a member and then outside when I left Adventism. Uh, so let's go ahead and get into some of those things that are quite distinctive about them. Well, first, all we have to do is look at the name, Seventh Day Adventist. Obviously, there's an emphasis. Uh, Obviously, there's an emphasis on the seventh day or the Sabbath. Adventists keep the Jewish Sabbath from Friday sundown until Saturday sundown. They keep the Sabbath. Now, typically, where I grew up at the Central Seventh day Adventist Church, we didn't watch TV, play secular music. Uh, we didn't play sports on the Sabbath. So, Friday night, Saturdays, no sports, no school activities that we could participate in, like choir or something like that. We basically went to church, had the potluck afterwards. We could eat at friends' houses and go on hikes and nature walks or whatever, and also get home and take naps. That was also quite common. Uh, that was kind of the activity of the Sabbath for most of us Seventh Day Adventists. Now that might seem boring, but really, after the potluck on the Sabbath, I usually didn't get home until probably 2 or 3. And if it's the wintertime, well, it's almost over with. And in the summertime, you go on a walk or you talk with your friends, and And all of a sudden it was, well, take a nap and it was over. So it was really a good time. And I learned not to have to depend on TV or the radio for my entertainment. And I really delved into trying to keep the Sabbath holy as much as I could. The other distinctive, of course, is on the other part of the name, Adventist. Adventists place a great importance on the end time events, what we in theology like to call eschatology. It's of a premier importance to them, as much as the Sabbath, and the two are really are not opposed, they are intertwined. How they perceive the Sabbath is also very important to how they perceive the end times. So for Adventists, you have the first advent of Jesus, which is the incarnation. You have the second advent at Christ's second coming, where he will take his people up for the millennial reign, which is in heaven. Unlike other premillennialists who believe that the millennial reign will be on earth, they believe it will be in heaven. And then Christ will come back again to raise the wicked for the final judgment. So if I could set the scene, when Christ comes, he will resurrect the just who will go to heaven with him, and then he will return with the just and all his angels to raise the dead of the wicked and judge them. And those who are the just are in heaven for 1,000 years reigning with Christ. After the judgment of the wicked, Seventh-day Adventists at this time will live in a paradise earth for eternity. Now, this is also leads to this next distinctive. Well, what happens to the wicked? Well, Seventh-day Adventists are annihilationists, meaning that they believe that there isn't a hell in the sense that one will be tortured or tormented forever. They believe out of God's mercy and love that he will just wipe out his creation. And the last of them to go will be Satan, Lucifer, the devil, whatever name you want to give to him. And because he will have to pay for all of his sins, which are much greater than all the other demons in hell, as well as any human being. And there is a strain of belief among Adventists that he will also be in some way paying for our sins. Now, they believe Christ paid for our sins on his death and saved us, but that there is a retributive punishment placed on Satan because of our sins. So it gets kind of murky at times for many people. But it was one that was said quite often when I was a teen there. And if you don't ask clearly what they mean by it, one could get really confused and believe that Satan is paying off the debt of those who were redeemed, for lack of a better way of putting it. And it's not always clear, so you have to ask that. But this also leads to another distinctive, which is soul sleep. Adventists believe that once you die, you are unconscious. You are basically dead. You know nothing. And you are resurrected is when you are again awake. Oh, the soul is sleeping. Now, I want to say this, soul sleep is not new. There are people within Christian history who have viewed it, but it's a small minority. Doesn't mean it's wrong, but it's a small minority. And annihilationism isn't new to Seventh-day Adventists. There have been people before that who held to that. Again, because it is a minority view does not mean it's wrong, but any minority view should be looked with a high degree of skepticism and flushed out to see if it's true or not. But those are some other Adventist distinctives. The reason why they will claim that these people can be annihilated is because Adventists will assert that the soul is conditional, meaning this idea of conditional immortality. The soul is mortal. It will die on its own. It is only given life by God. Therefore, your eternity is conditional. Therefore, conditional immortality. Another one is that the Adventists believe that they are the remnant church, and that the remnant church are those people who will hold to the Sabbath day, particularly at the end in the eschatological. And this is why it's interwoven. They believe that at the end times, that a Sabbath law that bans the Sabbath and a Sunday law that upholds Sunday will be in effect. and that the Sunday law will come from the political religious head of the Roman Catholic Church, the papacy. And they believe that the papacy, not each and every pope, but the papacy or Catholicism is the Antichrist or the beast mentioned in Revelation 13. Now, they are not going to assert that every Catholic is lost or is the beast, but individual Catholics may not be, but the papacy itself, as far as a system, is. And at the end times, it will be them who will again regain power over the world and political leadership. And a Sunday law will be enforced, and those who don't keep it uh, will be persecuted. And it's that time that other Protestants and Catholics will be making the decision to follow the Sunday law and the papacy, or to rebel against them and go towards the Sabbath and find the true identity in Jesus Christ. They hold to this view, and that's why you get the name Seventh-day Adventists. And hopefully you can see how the Sabbath and eschatology, the Advent, is intertwined. And that's where they believe that they are a remnant people in this prophetic belief. They hold that this is a great controversy that's taken place, hence the name of one of Ellen G. White's books, The Great Controversy. And that the Great Controversy is, in a way, viewing all of humanity's role in this cosmic light, this cosmic investigation, this cosmic judgment, to show, is God a God of love? And basically Satan is making an accusation against God, and through this great controversy, God is showing that he is love. And the primary way he did this is through his son, Jesus Christ. So those are some of the distinctives. The other big one is the investigative judgment. The investigative judgment is something that comes out of the Great Disappointment of October 22nd, 1944. Here in Edson, just can't believe something didn't happen. They were wrong about the date of Christ's return, but something happened there, and he comes up with the investigative judgment. And this is where Jesus enters into the Holy of Holy Places in heaven, or the heavenly throne, and it is here where he is investigating the dead and their record of the book of their book, and then the record of those who are living. Once that judgment's complete, that's when he will return to gather his elect. So those are some of those distinctive doctrines of their theology. Some other things that you'll notice about Adventists is that this high view of health. Adventists have a strong health message. They uphold the Levitical laws about what is clean and unclean foods. And they also believe in a historic eschatology. So what do I mean by historic eschatology? That we see prophecy being fulfilled throughout history. So they don't believe it's just in the past, and they don't believe it's just in the future, that it's being fulfilled throughout history. And if one is to read the Great Controversy, they'd get a better idea how that Adventists are flushing out that idea. And they hold to the Ten Commandments, God's moral law. They make the claim, of course, that the ceremonial laws were done away with, but not the moral law. And so learning these distinctives are where Adventists, and I quite often lived on the idea that, yes, we have the truth. We are the remnant. We're a little bit better than the rest of the Christians out there. So do Seventh-day Adventists have any other peculiar beliefs? Well, they do. And one usually does not know this until one has been in the denomination. At least that's been my experience with myself and speaking to other Adventists and ex-Adventists. One is the peccability of Christ's nature. And I don't want to straw man this. So hopefully I'll get this right, because I'm going back in some years of both my studies and when I participated. But I'm going to go to when I participated, because it was the common one we would discuss, okay? Is this idea that Jesus is both divine and human, but his human form has the sin nature. Jesus could have sinned. He just chose not to. And that is usually on a peculiar end. While Christianity has always maintained that Jesus is one person in two natures, he is divine and human. Typically, Christian theology, typically Christian theology has indicated that Jesus could not have sinned. And while he had a human nature, he was not born with the inheritance of our sin. They are primarily one of only two groups that hold to that Jesus is the Archangel Michael. Now, Jehovah Witnesses are the other. I think one can lay at the feet of Seventh-day Adventism of giving rise to the Jehovah Witness belief of Jesus being the Archangel Michael, the idea of soul sleep, and the idea that hell is annihilationism. Matter of fact, there are points where it seems Charles Taze Russell, the founder of Jehovah Witnesses, would indicate as such that he owed Seventh-day Adventists a debt for some of his views. So, this idea that Jesus is the Archangel Michael is, well, should probably get into all that later, what's wrong with these, but is, a, there's just not much substantiation for it. But they hold to that and they try to make this connection, just like Jehovah Witnesses. So that is also a distinctive belief. But I think that out of these distinctive beliefs, it shows that Adventism is not mainstream Christianity as we like to think of it. Uh, but does that mean they're not Christians? Well, stay tuned for part three, and let me address it from the other side as we try to see is Seventh-day Adventist cultic, Christian, or something else. Thank you very much.